And welcome to the SpartanMag.com VCast. Jim Comparoni, Paul Konyndyk, Madison Square Garden, New York City, the world's most famous arena, the city that never sleeps. Kind of fitting because Paul's been up since 4 a.m. I've been up since 6 a.m.
Are you kidding me? I've been up way longer than that.
How long have you been up, Paul?
Oh, I mean, like 5 days.
5 days.
No, I had a flight out of Grand Rapids at 5 o'clock, 5:30 this morning, and it was pretty awesome. But it's all good.
I got up at 6. I think you texted me today, said you got up at 4. It's been rough. And
I had to get at the airport at 4.
Had to get to the airport at 4? All right.
Not
so
that you guys care.
we're going to see if Paul can remain standing. If not, we'll give him a standing 8 count, and I'll go to my neutral corner. This is where Ollie and Frazier went at it in 1971. Now, 52 years later, Michigan State back in Madison Square Garden. They've only won once here. That's what I heard people talking about when the brackets came out. But it was in the Sweet 16 against Virginia, a very good Virginia team. I think Virginia might have been a 1 seed, and Michigan State was a 4 seed. Michigan State was victorious, then lost to UConn in the Elite 8. Michigan State's been here before. It's an old arena, but there's nothing like it. Michigan State's fired up. Paul, you were at the press conferences today. Big storyline. Tyson Walker and Marquis Nowell, a couple of New York City kids. And, you know, it's fitting of a documentary. If there had been some documentarian that had been following these two kids, players, since the time they were playing here in high school, on the playgrounds, we learned today, against one another. They've known each other a long time, been rivals. It's a friendly rivalry for them to go for the mid-majors. Tyson Walker from Northeastern to Michigan State, and Noel to Arkansas Little Rock to Kansas State, and to meet in the Sweet 16 in New York City. It's truly storybook, and those two have got to find a way to get through that and play their best basketball somehow. You know they're going to want to put on a show, but how that all pans out is a big storyline that is going to have a big impact on this game.
Yeah, I think one thing I've learned about Tyson Walker over the years, he's been here, even now, you know, he's like one of those kids that even though Izzo wants him to shoot more, I've never seen him take what I would consider a bad shot. No. I've never seen him be out of phase. Even when he plays defense against someone he wants to shut down, he might not always stop the guy or stone him cold, but I don't see him doing stupid things to try to get, because he's trying to get over on a guy. The only time I've seen Tyson Walker struggle with these kind of things is like I would say the mental fatigue if he's playing like way too many minutes. And right now, he's dialed in. He looked like a stone cold killer when he walked onto the floor against Marquette. I mean, that was like a scowl to end all scowls, and he was locked in that entire game. He's gotten to the point where he does whatever he has to do for this team to be successful. And it's kind of rare because we haven't seen too many guys that can cycle it up and play as well as he has on defense, as well as hit shots on offense, and then also slide over in that point guard role if another guy gets in foul trouble. Tyson Walker's playing about as well as I can remember in recent memory a guard playing in the Big Ten or coming out of the Big Ten in the NCAA Tournament. You could say like Travis Trice, and he had some hot games, but I've never seen Travis Trice bring it like Tyson Walker's brought it on both ends of the floor. And he deserves credit for him. Izzo gave him a lot of credit for him today. And, you're starting to hear Michigan State people, you're starting to hear Tom Izzo talk about this as being the best backcourt, like one of the best backcourts in Michigan State history, one of the best backcourts in the country. I felt pretty good about these guys all season long. I think they're starting to, deserve high praise.
Mm-hmm. And Tyson Walker, today he was talking about how last year's first year at Michigan State, he struggled at the beginning of the season, which I didn't think he was struggling, but he revealed today, just kind of in passing, that he considered himself struggling. We watched him last year and thought that he maybe could have been shooting more, but he was easing himself into the playing group. But I thought that was interesting that he described it that way. Tyson Walker said that he took Izzo out for a piece of pizza yesterday. I assume Izzo ate it, maybe Walker didn't, because I'm not sure that's the proper pregame nutrition. But Izzo got his pizza. Tyson Walker says he wants to see if he can get home to see his dog, Saint. You probably appreciated that.
That was big news, man. That was the big news. Yeah, that's what I thought. I think they should probably sneak him in here. Give him a NYPD vest or something like that.
Now, when games are played here, like the Big East tournament, there's a different vibe where individuals start to take over. This is the NCAA tournament, of course. These guys grew up around here. The world's most famous arena, all of that stuff. Noel, they're both excellent guards. Tyson Walker, shooting guard, lead guard. Noel, point guard. Noel will turn it over a lot, but he'll turn in some dazzling plays. Now, Walker's a dazzling player, but Noel really is wants to dazzle. Got a lot of flair, did some great things last week against Kentucky. When the stage is like this and there's going to be a sideshow feel to it, Noel has never played here before. He's biggest basketball moment of his life. He's going to be at a different RPM level, and he's going to be shooting from the logo, and he's going to be throwing some crazy passes. If he gets going, I think Michigan State's the better team. But if he gets going, that's one of the little asterisk intangibles that, as an observer looking at Michigan State, I'm concerned about. Not only his talent, but the show fueling him even more so. And does Walker get baited into a tit for tat? I'm sure Izzo will want to keep a lid on that. I just think that that's a little bit of a variable here because of where it is, because those two know each other. That makes it a little bit strange for me to forecast a little bit.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's always a fear when you got a guy like that. But the fear on the other end is that guy doesn't perform because it becomes a circus sideshow. And this is not about individual basketball.
But, Kansas State kind of plays a circus
game.
Anyway.
I understand that. But, I think of some of the other guys in the past, like a Buddy Hield when Michigan State was playing Oklahoma. I think that Oklahoma team is better. That Oklahoma team that Michigan State beat in the Sweet 16, before beating Louisville, that Oklahoma team is better than this, is significantly better, in my opinion, than this Kansas State team.
I agree.
And Buddy Hield was an amazing dude, amazing person, an amazing story, pretty much the player of the year in college basketball that year. Great human being. Michigan State played really good defense on him, and that
was up and down. That was tight to the last 4 minutes.
Yeah, it was
high scoring game.
It was, and but I feel like Tyson Walker is going to be up for this moment. I think my big question is, okay, we talk about Tyson Walker going up against Marquis Nowell. My big thing is, what's A.J. Hoggard going to do? That's the thing. Like, you'd say, is Tyson Walker going to want to go tit for tat? A.J. Hoggard, to me, is the guy that could get baited into going to tit for tat, especially if there's some fancy passes and whatnot. That's not his game. His game is the vision, getting a guy in rhythm for, a textbook corner three or that type of thing. His game is, getting the ball up the court, real Michigan State-style transition. A.J. Hoggard can't malfunction in this game. I'm not worried about Tyson Walker. He is not, he might have an off shooting night, but he's not going to short circuit. A.J. Hoggard is more of a threat, and that's where I would get concerned. But also you look at Michigan State, they're playing, they've already beat, I'm not going to say two teams that are better. Maybe they've beaten two teams that are better than this Kansas State team. And I know this Kansas State team put up a lot of numbers. Everyone gets enamored with how many the wins and losses. Everyone's saying, well, Big 12 is the best conference in the country. Well, that's debatable. Michigan State has got, in my opinion, more experience than these guys. They've been in bigger moments on a bigger stage for years. Mm-hmm. They play for Michigan State. Every game is a big stage. Mm-hmm. Every game is a game against the jersey. Everybody that plays Michigan State wants to beat that jersey. So, I can see this going in a lot of different ways. I have a lot of respect for Noel. I don't think that he can beat Michigan State on his own. And we've seen that over the years. It's rare for one guy to do it. So, I think Michigan State, they have to play good team defense. They can't take a step back on defense, and they have to keep on grinding. If he does hit some shots early, and that's possible, they have to, they can't take risks. You can't do too much because then you open them up for other stuff. They have to rebound well. I would say the one thing that if I'm Michigan State, the thing I'm hammering home is defensive glass, man. You get a stop, make it count. Last thing you want to do is have to replay the possession and give someone another circus shot.
And if Michigan State can clear the glass, Kansas State looks a little bit iffy with their transition defense here and there. They got some guys that are a little bit casual here and there. They're going to try to get back on defense. Coach Jerome Tang talked about what he saw in Michigan State when he looked at him on film, and he mentioned rebounding and transition defense. That's what everybody in the Big Ten always says. They've known it over the years. Michigan State's been slowly trying to get their transition game back. Here and there in spurts, they've done it. Today in the locker room, the Michigan State's players that you talked to, Carson Cooper, Trey Holloman, and some others, mentioned that they feel that this is going to be an up-and-down game. It's going to be a fast-paced game. Izzo mentioned it also. Yesterday I wrote an article saying, can Michigan State run with Kansas State? Do they want to? I think Michigan State can, and maybe they will run real well successfully. But I was wondering whether they would want to, because I think there's other ways that Michigan State can win this game. If this were a 5-game series, I think Michigan State might try to play 2 different styles. If they lost a game, come back with a different style the next game. But Michigan State's been waiting to see if they've got a transition game after makes and misses. This is a team that will racehorse with you. They've racehorsed with Texas, and they both scored over 100. They've racehorsed with TCU 3 times. They've played that game more frequently than Michigan State has. Michigan State feels they can. I'm not sure they've demonstrated it yet. Sometimes Michigan State can spring that on a team in the NCAA Tournament and make it work. I give credit to Michigan State for thinking they can and saying they're going to. I still want to wait and see if they just do it in spurts or if they do it from start to finish. If they do it start to finish, I'm just wondering if somehow you might leave Kansas State in the game because it's back and forth, back and forth.
That's the big problem, especially when you look at how important certain players are. If you're going to play that style of basketball, you really have to commit. You can't do it for 2 halves. I mean, it's a 1 half thing. You look at the way Michigan State substitutes in the second half, and you get Tyson Walker playing a lot more minutes. They try to get him some rest. They try to get him and Hogard more rest in the first half. Holloman is playing more minutes in that than he would in the second half. You got to be careful with that. We think of traditional Michigan State transition, and I don't think when they think of running, it's 40 minutes of that. I think that
okay.
I think if you look at what the Marquette deal, they get that 13-point lead or whatever. Obviously they had foul trouble with Hogard. That kind of hurt them a little bit, but I think once you get to that 4-minute mark or whatever, if you got to have a good cushion, and you see that team is getting sloppy, then you can take it in to a different aspect. You can, instead of just running up and down the court, you can be like, hey, these guys are getting sloppy. That's where A.J. Hogard's usually at his best for some of those drives. When he's at his best to take it to the rack. You've got multiple drivers that can do some stuff, maybe some drives and dump-offs, some drives for corner threes. What I think of Michigan State transition this year, when they've been at their best, it's been maybe an 8-minute stretch.
Yeah.
And it's usually facilitated by defense. So it's not like – that's the one thing I think people sometimes forget about transition basketball. It's not, hey, we're going to decide to run and we're going to run for 40 minutes. You have to do things to run. You have to get stops and you have to clear the defensive glass. That's number one. But I don't think with this team's not deep enough. You don't want you guys gassed, and you don't want A.J. Hogard, you don't want Tyson Walker not being able to make free throws because, they're in a track meet. You
get drawn into a game like that, it could get sloppy. End up with a game like Iowa. Michigan State, a couple times they've gotten the blitz counter break going here in the last month or so. And that's the way Heathcote used to do it. Maybe not from start to finish, but just like maybe 8 minutes to go in the half. Now the blitz is on. You might catch them napping a little bit here and there, score that way. People have asked me, I mentioned, back in January when I watched Kansas State, they were 17-1. They were ranked in the top 5 in the country. And I was like, well, this is a curiosity. I want to see what they're doing when they play Kansas. And I watched it, and I mentioned on the message board many weeks ago that I wasn't buying them. I'm like, that they're not a top 5 team. That's what I meant back then. They're not a top 5 team. What I didn't like about them then, even though they were winning, was shot selection, which is crazy. They do some circus stuff. Sometimes it goes in. Just a manner in which they play. If they come out and play that way and win this game, then I'll take another step toward just not understanding today's basketball. Because when I watch it, I'm like, they beat Montana State. They beat a Kentucky team that was not a team last week. They're here in the Sweet 16, but I'm looking at it like, man, doesn't look like a team that should be in the Elite 8 ball. I'm sorry. Maybe they'll prove it tomorrow. Kansas State will. As far as Michigan State goes, the hesitancy there is, they played really well against Marquette, but all year they've not really been a consistent team. They've not demonstrated that they're trustworthy, that you know what you're going to get when they take the court. Now it's March, it's Izzo, he's got everybody locked in, so maybe we can trust them to play a Michigan State type of team here in the Sweet 16, I guess. And if they do, Michigan State's already beaten the best team in the region, which was Marquette. They're not as good as Marquette, like you said, but Michigan State, that doesn't guarantee that in this particular matchup that they will play as well as they did against Marquette. But it's there for Michigan State to take.
Yeah, so my question is, are they going to play defense as well as they played against Marquette? Because the offense, it wasn't perfect. They missed a lot of open shots and whatnot. But if they play defense as well as they did against Marquette, they're going to be in a good spot. I think Marquette had more weapons, and they had more dangerous weapons in that you got 1 through 5 that can shoot, and then you get a 5-man that can pass. There's a lot of things that happened in that game. Kansas State has some nice pieces. Arguably the best point guard in the country. I wouldn't argue that. I'd say he's one of the more exciting point guards in the country to watch.
Exciting.
But
he's a showman.
He is, and God bless him. He's had a great year. Kansas State has been a great story. But I think if Michigan State plays defense as well as they played against Marquette, I think they're going to be ready for it. I feel like these guys are pretty well prepared. I feel like they have the confidence after winning that weekend. They have the confidence in the preparation. And, let's not forget that Tom Izzo and John Calipari are friends and whatnot, so I'm sure that those guys talked. I want to go back to the Kentucky game because I think a lot of people look at apples and, they say, well, Michigan State played Kentucky and beat them, and it was a close game. And then, Kansas State played Kentucky, and they looked good against them at times. I would argue that there's sometimes they didn't look good against them. And I would also argue that Kentucky didn't have a point guard, and it was painfully obvious. It was bad. And Oscar Tshiebwe, people say, well, he was better against Kansas State than he was against Michigan State coming off injury. I say bull crap to that. Oscar Tshiebwe was terrible in that game. His inability to run baseline to baseline, he got some offensive rebounds and putbacks, but that wasn't good. That wasn't a good performance on his part. And I felt like Kentucky early in that game, they got lulled to sleep when Kansas State wasn't hitting shots. They had an opportunity to put some distance in between them, and they just let them hang around. And they didn't run stuff. It was all ISO ball. It was bad AAU basketball, in my opinion. And I have respect for Kentucky. I really like what they did. I like Shamari Wheeler as a point guard.
Severe Wheeler?
I'm sorry. Yeah, Severe Wheeler. The leadership wasn't there. They lacked the leadership at the point guard position, and it was disjointed. Izzo talks about connectedness. You hear a coach just talk about being connected. Kentucky was completely unconnected in that game, and that's what happens when you don't have a point guard.
They didn't look like a team, even though they out-rebounded Kansas State 45-25, something like that. Kansas State missed the first 13 three-pointers. So if that happens in here on Thursday night, Michigan State's going to be in really good shape. Of course, Michigan State shot cold in the Marquette game. I suspect that that's not going to continue. I think Michigan State's due a good team three-point shooting night. Noel is so good with the drive. Strong guy at like 5'7", 5'8", can really turn the corner. He's got great court vision as he goes. Can also, behind the ball screen, stop and launch from NBA range. His ability to penetrate, if they spread you out, can Tyson Walker stay in front of him? Can Walker stay out of foul trouble? Trey Holloman coming in and giving them some good minutes here and there on defense. That will be helpful as well. In the meantime, on defense, Kansas State, so Michigan State's got Walker and Hogard, two good guards, excellent guards. They also play defense, Hogard and Walker do. Kansas State, Johnson's getting a lot of credit at 6'6", what he does offensively, shooting 40% from the field. 17 points a game, 51% for the year. Those numbers look really good, but you watch him play, and there's some casual nature to him on the boards, casual and transition defense, casual some of the fall-away shots. The stats are there, but you watch him, and just some of that stuff just doesn't look like buttoned-down Elite 8 style of basketball. Hogard and Walker can play defense. Noel tries to at 5'7", and he's pesky, and he'll look to get steals, and he'll cheat into the passing lanes to get steals, which if he doesn't get them, it leaves them other openings elsewhere. I think the edge there is that Michigan State has two-way guards that do a little bit of everything, and Kansas State, they switch five. Sometimes that could mean that Noel at 5'7" is guarding Sissoko. Not that Sissoko is Elvin Hayes as a scorer or anything, but Kansas State knows that. They'll full front, and they'll, dare you to get it in there. There's going to be some matchups there that I think Michigan State possibly can take advantage of with the way that they switch 5 in Kansas State's defense. Michigan State locking up on defense. Michigan State should play. I would imagine Michigan State will play better team defense in this game than Kansas State. But Kansas State, those circus shots can go sometimes.
The other thing that you saw in the last 2 games, Andy Enfield at USC, they put a huge premium on keeping Joey Hauser.
Yes.
Running him off the line. Marquette, even a bigger premium on running him off the line. I don't see the same thing happening in this game. The trailer threes. Joey Hauser's played in this arena more than anybody on the Michigan State team, having been in the Big East. He likes it here. He's comfortable with it. And after, he's had a couple of really big threes against USC. And really well guarded. I mean, he was covered. He's coming off not much room hitting shots. He's going to have more room in this game. It's going to feel for him like he is wide open, like he hasn't felt for a long time. That's one of those things when you look at USC, you look at Marquette. Those are 2 defensive-minded programs. I was really impressed with how well Marquette was in the scouting report on all the plays. They were deep in Michigan State's playbook, deeper than most teams. I would say USC was very good as well. Mm-hmm. And they had some advantages because they've got a good defensive system and they had really good length. But a guy like Joey Hauser, Malik Hall's another guy that's going to be open. I think Joey Hauser's going to knock down jumpers. Can Malik Hall knock down open shots? Like Michigan State loses this game, in my opinion, if they can't knock down open shots and Kansas State hits circus shots. And that's really the only way I see Michigan State losing this game, barring injuries or foul trouble or what have you. But I feel like Michigan State's the better team. I feel like they're better tested. I feel like they've got a better system, and the structure is better. And usually, when you put all those pieces together at this time of year, that wins out. And it doesn't always. That's not always the case. But I've got a good feeling about this, and if I was Michigan State, I feel good about this, but they've got to do some things. They got to hit shots like they have all year. I don't understand. You can't just say because a team has one off shooting night that they're all of a sudden a shooting slump. I don't buy that. The players don't buy that. The shots didn't look terrible coming off or anything like that. You watch these guys doing warm ups or whatnot, and no one's like fading on their shot or the arc on their shot is bad or anything like that. I think it's a novelty question right now because they shot so poorly in the last game, but I don't think it's a real concern.
And I agree with all that. One more thing, stopping just dribble drive penetration in the half court, because Noel is spectacular at it with great court vision, drawing an extra defender and feeding the open man. It's can one man keep him out of the lane? Michigan State will protect they'll when Walker's playing defense, they'll be doing 6 eyes, getting hedging with help. Pack line philosophy. If he beats a guy, someone's open, he'll kick it out, and he gets a lot of assists that way. But like Sills, 21% a guard. Cam Carter, 32%. Not great shooters, but on a given night, if they're getting open, if Michigan State's letting those guys have shots based on stopping penetration to the rim, I'm not saying letting them have wide open shots, but hedging to stop this and then contest late. Those shots go in, you can get in trouble. Now, Michigan State would make adjustments if those guys start making shots. Tomlin, their center, he's kind of built like Marcus Bingham a little bit, a little thicker, a little shorter at 6'10". He's got the same, gait as Marcus Bingham, but he's got real good face-up skill for a 6'10" center. He'll shoot three-pointers too, 25%, but he'll let it fly. If those shots go in and it's their night, because this Noel is so good at penetrating and so good with his vision, he will get shots for those guys.
Yeah, I think of the Matthew Mayer Baylor game, that Michigan State played. They played really good, even against Illinois. That guy was hitting shots that he hadn't hit for weeks. Guys that are 25% three-point shooters, it's infuriating when those guys go off. But there's a difference between being a guy that's a 25% three-point shooter and a 25% three-point shooter who thinks he's an 80% three-point shooter. And these guys, they've got no conscience, and they're not going to worry about letting it fly.
I showed you this, a couple minutes ago. We were looking at some old games. 2 weeks ago, they were playing at West Virginia. Kansas State was. It's 5 minutes into the game, and Sills, who's a 21% three-point shooter, shot clock's at 20, and he's out on the right over there in the corner, and he jab, makes a move, and does a fall-away three-pointer. It's a 21% three-point shooter who has the green light to hoist up that, I call it slop. Missed the shot, but things like that is what I saw when they played Kansas when they were 17-1. Even though they're winning games, I'm like, that's just not, in my construct, that's not the way you play effective basketball.
Yeah, and it's not
but here they are in the Sweet 16.
And it's not the way that I've got a lot of respect for that coach, where he came from, what he's been able to do with this program in a short period of time. And sometimes you have to accept some stink. If it wasn't for the stink on the inside, I don't know, whatever that saying is, but it's not Baylor-like. It's not Baylor-like. And I've got a lot of respect for the coach. And sometimes you have to accept some leakage in some areas to get the job done. And he hasn't had time to correct some of these guys. Sweet 16 and beyond, that's usually when it catches up to you. It might not against this Michigan State team, but I've got a feeling that it's going to catch up to him.
I agree with that. Great analysis, Paul Konyndyk. We're going to go get him to the corner and work on his cuts and get him some water and see if we can find Percy Richardson with a brown bottle. Anything else, Paul?
No, man.
Paul Konyndyk, Jim Comparoni, been watching the VCast from the world's most famous arena, Madison Square Garden, New York City. VCast, SpartanMag.com.